studied what was the difference between a diagram and a graph, and what were the important points or how graphs and diagrams are useful in the subject of economics, right? Today we are going to study the aspects that we need to consider while or before drawing a graph or a diagram, right? So first I will explain those points giving you some examples. So what are the necessary or important aspects to be considered while drawing a diagram or a graph? The first important aspect is to make the choice of a diagram or a graph. To make the choice of a diagram or a graph. In simple terms, yesterday I explained you that if you have a discrete data, then you can go for a diagram, and if you have a continuous data, then you can go for a graph. That was very simple. But there are a lot many types of diagrams and a lot many types of graphs. So once you have decided whether you are going to use a diagram or a graph, in that thing also there are variety of options from which you need to select which one will be appropriate to represent the data that you have. So in making choice of a diagram or a graph, I will quickly give you an example. Yesterday we saw the example. I had made a small table about standard and number of students studying in standard 11th and standard 12th. There were 50 students in standard 11, 80 students in standard 12. So I had used a bar diagram in order to represent this information, this information on a diagram. 1, 2, 3, and on x-axis you will have the standard, and on y-axis you will have the number of students studying in that particular class. 11 and 12. I will draw two bars corresponding to the number of children studying in that particular class. You need not to draw this right now. Pay close attention. This is one method of representing such data through a diagram, and this is a bar diagram. This is called a bar diagram, right? And if you want to represent this data through a circle diagram, then also it is possible. How? You should make these numbers small, but you cannot change the proportion of them, right? Because if you take this is really important. If you take 1 centimeter is equal to 1 student, then taking a diameter or a radius of 50 centimeters will be very difficult for you, and you won't be able to draw a circle diagram using this much radius. So what you will do is, if you divide both of these numbers by 10, right, or I say if you divide both of these numbers by 20, then the radius for this particular class 50 divided by 20, it becomes 2.5 centimeters, right? Radius in centimeters. This becomes 2.5 and this becomes 4 centimeter. Now, will you be easily able to draw a circle diagram using a radius of 2.5 and 4 centimeters in your book? It will become very easy for you. So, you will draw two circle diagrams, one of 2.5 centimeter radius and one of the radius 4 centimeters, right? This is how you can represent this data through a circle diagram. This is another way of representing such data through a circle diagram. So there are variety of options from which you need to select which diagram to go for. But if I say this were the just two standards, if I increase the number of standards, if I say from 5th standard to 12th standard, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10, 12, there will be 8 bars here. So if you want to represent such data through bars, then you can make 8 bars. But if you make 8 circles, seeing the bars, you will easily be able to compare and tell which class has more number of students, which class has lesser number of students. But if I draw 8 circles, and I don't write the radius, and if I don't write the radius inside the circles, then it will become difficult for you to decide which circle is bigger and which circle is smaller just by seeing or looking at the pictures. So whenever there is more information, now you know you should go for a bar diagram. But when the information is very small or less in numbers, then you can go for either of these options. So first thing before making a diagram is you make a choice that which diagram will you go for when you want to plot such kind of a data, right? So this was just an example. Currently you need not to write this. This was in order to make you understand the concept of choice of a diagram or a graph. Once you read your textbook, the language is very simple and your textbook is already comprehensive. You will not need any other books in order to prepare for your board exams. So read your textbook, read that particular point in your textbook. In case you have any doubt, then just ask me that. The first point was choice of a diagram. The second point is that there should be clarity. There should be proper clarity in your diagram or the graph. Why is it necessary? Because if your diagram does not look neat or clear, or the numbers are not plotted well, the bars are of uneven width. Let me inform you one thing. The width of the bar, as a pahai છે, this width of the bar does not represent anything. એટલે every bar should be of equal width. Length તો તમે શું છે, number of students ની proportion માં તમે રાખવાના છો, but the width does not represent anything and therefore the width of each bar should remain constant, should be uniform. Okay, so in order to make a diagram look neat and clear, you should take proper measures, proper scales, so that it will look proper. You should not make a mistake. If your scale is small and I had asked you to draw a line of more than 15 centimeters, the small scales are of 15 centimeters, then what you do is you plot one line like this, after that again you plot your scale and your another line goes like this. So this should not happen. You should match this line with this line and make a proper constant line. If such things happen in a diagram or a graph, then the diagram or a graph may not look appropriate and the reader might misunderstand what is the purpose of you plotting such lines. Okay, so there should be clarity. Your diagram should look neat and clean without any mistakes, right? So therefore always use a pencil while drawing a diagram. Don't try to do it with your pen, because if some mistake happens, you are not able to erase that particular mistake and draw the diagram. Okay. So always use pencil and scale. From now onwards, please bring a pencil and scale for a few days. For the next few days, we are going to do different kind of diagrams that are present in this chapter. Right? So you need to draw them perfectly in your book as I draw them on the board. Right? So the next point is you should take appropriate scales and measures. You should take appropriate scales and measures. So what does this point mean? It means that if, as I told you, that if I take 1 centimeter is equal to 1 student, then in order to plot this data, I have to draw a diagram of the height of 80 centimeters, which is not possible in your notebook, right? So what we do is we divide the number of students according to centimeters. So what scale have we taken? We have taken 1 centimeter is equal to 10 students here. We have taken the scale as 1 centimeter is equal to 10 students. And remember the words that the distance between the first bar and the starting point should be equal to the distance between the consecutive bars. એટલે 0 થી લઈને જે ફર્સ્ટ બાર નંબરો છે એના વચ્ચે હવે 2 સેન્ટીમીટર નો ગેપ છે. So the gap between first and second bar should also be 2 centimeter. The gap between third and fourth graph bar should also be 2 centimeters. Okay, this should be equal. So this is what they are talking about in scales and measures of this particular diagram or a graph. This is what they mean to say. Fourth point is, these are very basic and easy points. Many of these points you might be knowing, but this is just like revising those points that you have studied in standard 8 or 9 or 10. But this is in order to make you perfect. And please mark this question as a very important 3-marker question. This can come in your board for 3 marks. It has been asked before also, and it is a very important 3-marker question. You need to write all the 6 points. At that time you won't just write 3 or 4 points and you will get 4 marks. You need to write all the 6 points. They are mentioned very crisply here in the textbook, and the language is also very simple, right? Fourth point is representation of axis. Representation of axis. Generally what happens is you plot the independent variable on the x-axis and the dependent variable on y-axis, right? Independent variables which are not affected by any factor, we are called independent variables. Your standard is unaffected by any kind of variables. But if I plot your result on y-axis, can I say result or the marks scored by you are dependent on various factors? It depends on the practice you have done or the time you have spent learning the chapter. Based on that you are going to perform on the test, right? So dependent factors are placed on the y-axis and independent variables are placed on the x-axis. Okay, so representation of axis should be proper. Here on the x-axis, we have taken the standard of children. We have taken the standard in which the children are studying, and on y-axis we have taken the number of students. We have plotted the number of students. Okay, is everything clear until now? The next point says data table and source of data. Data table and source of data. So what is a data table? Data table is a table based on which you are going to prepare a diagram or a graph. You are used to making such tables previously. I guess you might have prepared a diagram or a graph in your standard 9th and 10th also, right? So if you want to prepare a diagram or a graph, first you need data, and from that data only you are going to prepare a diagram or a graph. That data should be presented properly in the form of a table. It cannot be verbal data that standard 11 contains 50 students, standard 12 contains 80 students, out of them particular number are males and particular number are females. You cannot just display such raw data on a diagram or a graph. It should be properly formatted data presented through a table. So table is very necessary for plotting the data on a diagram or a graph. And source of data. Why is the source important? If someone tells you, if your friend informs you suddenly that due to the outbreak of coronavirus, the school has suspended its operation for the next 1 month, then some of you might be happy, some of you might not be, right? So first of all, you don't get excited right now. You ask your friend, what is the source? Because if your friend is making a joke out of it, then you will get fooled. So first you need to confirm whether you have got the message from the school or not. Don't depend on any other source whether the school has sent you a message regarding that or not. You will first confirm that fact, and then and only then you will express your emotions, right? So source of data is very necessary for us to believe on the data. There are you have seen, in case you have seen stock market or you have went to a site called Money Control, in order to track different stocks, there are various graphs and charts over there. These graphs and charts, based on them, people are investing crores and crores of rupees, not lakhs, but crores and crores of rupees. They are investing based on the charts prepared by the technical analysts. Technical analysts help us to know whether the stock is moving upward or downward for a shorter period of time. Based on that, we are making our investing decisions. When you get older and you start earning, then you might also be faced with the question that whether I should save my money, where should I invest my money, where should I utilize my money. So at that time this point will arise. But are you going to invest all of your savings just based on a saying of some unknown person, based on what an unknown person or a new friend informs you that this sector is very growing, so invest all your money or all your savings in this particular stock? You are not going to do that. You are going to verify the information before investing, whether this thing is a valid company or not, whether it is really making profit or not, what is the past record of that. So source of the data plays a very vital role. Source of the data plays a very vital role in making of the table, because randomly, if you prepare a table, if I got the unemployment rates without having any proper information or taking the information from Census of India or any authorized website, then those numbers might be wrong. And if based on those numbers you are asked to prepare a project and submit it to the school, then you might have prepared a project honestly based on those numbers. But if those numbers are only wrong, then your project and the analysis based on that project will also prove to be wrong. So source of data is very very important. Always turn your page, come to page number 4. You can see a table, and under that table the source is mentioned. The source is Census of India, right? So Census of India, what does Census of India do? They are the ones who are surveying the population every decade and are presenting you with important statistics. So that source is a trustable source. You can trust that source, and then based on that data you can prepare a project, you can do certain analysis, you can forecast things based on that data. So it is trustworthy. So always you need to mention source. If I have taken an imaginary example like this, then I need to mention the source as hypothetical data. I need to mention that I have taken an hypothetical example or hypothetical data in order to make you understand this concept, right? The last point says you need to mention or figure out the method of calculating data before preparing a diagram or a graph. You all have a chapter called regression and time series in your statistics part 1 this year. So in that chapter, what you will learn is you will be given certain values of x, and based on those values of x, you are asked to predict the values of y. How are you going to predict these values of y? Using regression line or trend line. Using regression line, you are going to plot the values of y. So there is a formula for calculating the relation between x and y, and that formula will give you the exact values. Supposingly, you know that price and demand share inverse relationship, right? When the price increases, the demand decreases. So if the price is 10, the demand is 50. If the price is 20, the demand is 40. If the price is 30, then what will be the demand? This is what you can calculate using those formulas of statistics. So certain graph, not all graphs, but certain graph will require you to give or use a formula to calculate the data, and based on this table we will get a table of x and y. Then using this table we will plot these values of x and y on the graph. We will plot the values of x, we will plot the values of y. Y is the dependent variable or the independent variable? Y is the dependent variable because the values of y are based on the values of x. So x being the independent variable, we will plot x on x-axis and we will plot the values of y on y-axis, and by connecting the points we can get a graph. This is how method of calculating data point is important for you to learn. Now turn your page, come to page number 4. There are lots of diagrams and graphs. But from those diagrams and graphs, in this chapter we are going to learn 3 types of diagrams. One is time-based line diagram, second is a bar diagram, and third is a pie diagram. Right? One by one we are going to study them. Today we are going to learn how to make a time-based line diagram. Today we are going to learn how to make a time-based line diagram. time-based line diagram or curve. Now, what is a time-based line diagram? Based on the name itself, you can know that something will be time-based. So, the information provided to you might be according to years, might be according to months, according to weeks, or even days. If you want to see or compare the unemployment levels since many years, since independence, then what you can do is you can plot different years, like starting from 1951, I say it's 1951, 1961, 1971. How is the decadal improvement in the sector of unemployment? Is the unemployment decreasing or is it increasing in terms of percentage? Then we can plot such data on a time-based line diagram. If some company wants to compare its profits since the past 5 years and wants to make a time-based line diagram, then they can make it easily, that they can plot their years 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. They can plot 5 or 6 years and they can plot their performance, their net profits for the respective years, and they can make a line diagram which you can see here as it is. They can make a line diagram using such data also. Now, what are the key points that you need to remember? Remember that you have to learn from the textbook. I am giving you sub points or key points which will make your learning easy, which will prove to be easy for you to remembering all the points. Okay, so I am listing a few points that you will need to write, and you have to write all of these after I make a time-based line diagram. So particularly right now you have to pay attention here. You can know the slope of relationship. You can know the slope of relationship between two variables using a time-based line diagram. What can you know? The slope of relation. Slope means whether it is increasing, whether it is decreasing, whether it has remained stable over a period of time or not. Right? The second important point is the independent variable. As we all know, independent variable is plotted on x-axis and dependent variable is plotted on y-axis. Okay, the independent variable, which is time, will always be plotted on the x-axis, whether it is year, month, week or days. And the second variable, which is a dependent variable, will be plotted on the y-axis. Right? The next important point is generally this time-based line diagram. Time-based line diagram is used. It is used for representing self-explanatory trends. You know the meaning of the word self-explanatory? જે જોઈને જ આપણને સમજ પડી જાય. Once you see the diagram or the graph, you will easily be able to understand what kind of information is plotted on this diagram, right? So I am going to make a time-based line diagram right now with the table or information that I have prepared for you. I am going to plot the literacy rate in percentage of our country in the past few years. After I complete drawing it, you have to draw the same in your fair. In case you have not brought a fair book today, you can write it in any other book and then you can copy it after going. The first and most important part of any diagram or a graph is the heading. You need to write the heading that what does this particular diagram or a graph represent. So the heading is you are making a time-based line diagram showing literacy rate in India. I will complete this diagram within 5 minutes. Pay close attention. પછી તમને ટાઈમ મળશે લખવા માટે. તો 10 મિનિટ્સ મળશે તમને લખવા માટે. તો કરન્ટલી તમારી પેન સ્ટોપ કરી દો અત્યારે અને pay close attention. I will quickly explain you how to draw time-based line diagram. As I said earlier that you have to plot year on the x-axis. So quickly I will plot different years on the x-axis. 1961, 1991, 2001, 2006, 2018. So different years are plotted on the x-axis because they are independent variables. Now dependent variables they are going to plot on the y-axis. You all know that this is in terms of percentage. So what will be the maximum percentage? 100, right? But you cannot take 1 centimeter is equal to 1 percentage. You have to short that down, but short. So what you will write is 1 centimeter is equal to 10 percentage. 1 centimeter is equal to 10 percentage, and you will start plotting them. Then quickly, what will you do? In 1961, what was the literacy rate? 40.76. So above 40, just 1 mm above 40, you have to make a mark because you don't have a graph paper, so it won't be so exact. But in your normal book also, you can make this kind of a diagram. It is allowed to make this type of a diagram. So you will make a mark or you will make a point at 40.76. Then it is 48.22, which will be nearer to 50. So you will make a point a little above this point. After that, in 2001, you can see that the literacy levels have increased tremendously. It went from 48 to 61. So you are going to plot that also. You have to make the use of a scale in order to plot these points. So it should be exactly in the center, right? I am drawing it without a scale, but you all should take a scale and put the points perfectly well. Okay, so there is 61.01. Then you have 62.75, which will be near to that only. After that, you have 69.30, which will be near to 70, very close to 70. So you plot it here. And lastly, you have 74.37, which you will plot here in the year 2018. Now, you don't have to draw a freehand curve. Don't make that mistake that we will draw without using scale. If it looks like a freehand curve, you will not get your full marks. What you have to do is you take a scale and you join all the dots consecutively. It might not be a straight line. It might not be a straight line. Okay, but this line will help you find the trend in which direction is literacy rate moving, whether it is increasing or decreasing. Here you can see that the literacy rate is increasing, but at a very slower pace. Even after decades of independence, we are not able to achieve 85 or 90% literacy rate. With all the facilities even now available in our country, there are internet facilities over each and every village. Almost every village has an internet facility, I can say that. So even with these facilities, education has not reached a subsequent portion of population, right? So now you can draw this diagram. Please write these points, make this table, and after that only you make this diagram.